All right, we're live. Get chat open.
Yeah, there is.
We'll give it a couple minutes. Let people file into the center.
Mm.
Hello.
Hello, Daniel. Hello, Timmy.
Hello.
Welcome, everyone.
Arigato.
Yeah, so no formal presentations today. Just kind of a casual chat. Although I guess I do have a small announcement that I recently published the first update to Grappler's Gauntlet, finally. I wanted to get it before I moved initially, but ended up taking longer than I was expecting. But it's got some of the stuff that I wanted to do initially. There's like a practice mode now where you can just hop into the map untimed, get familiar with the mechanics. There's some targets that will also spawn randomly around, and you can shoot those for like aim training. It's a nice little touch. Got a placeholder for the leaderboards, which is the next thing that I want to implement. So, whoever gets like, I'm thinking either the highest score or the quickest time to win out of a match. Maybe I'll have like two separate boards for that even. But yeah, that's the next thing I want to do. And then after that, I'm not quite sure. Maybe some more gameplay related changes.
Awesome. Do you plan to publish it somewhere?
Yeah, it's actually live on Viverse right now, and I recently submitted it
Oh,
to
Vivers.
a new tab page.
Awesome. Can you share the link? I mean, I haven't seen it yet.
Yes. One moment.
Thank you.
Link is here. Yeah, I'm sure if you look at the page, you can see it's gotten just like a couple comments. So I'm not actually sure how active it's been, but every time I've jumped in, I've never seen any existing lobbies. Maybe if I can get it listed on new tab page, though, there might be some more volume.
Like you don't get analytics on Fivers?
I just don't have anything specifically set up in it right now. I can see views too, so I know it's gotten like a couple thousand views, but for just being on the Virus website and not like super promoted anywhere else, that makes sense. That's kind of what some of my HVR stuff got.
Yeah, it's mainly the new tab page that drives traffic, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What do you use for matchmaking?
Hmm.
Like does like sorry. Yeah, does Vivers provide any some sort of tools for matchmaking lobbies?
I don't know that Vivers offers a like lobby system. I know there's like some basic like built-in networking support.
Networking?
But for Grappler's Gauntlet, actually, I'm fully using a third party or like I guess my own infra for it. I'm not actually using Viverse's stuff for the multiplayer connection because since the game is about like tracking stats partially, you know, like making sure people can't like easily falsify stuff. I have some Hathora like a Hathora project that spins up servers whenever someone creates a lobby. But I guess the next step after that would probably be like letting you just like matchmake into a random game, which probably wouldn't be too much of a lift.
First time hearing about the Hotara server thing.
Yeah, they're a good platform. I've used them in a couple projects, including like some zesty ones.
I see. Also, like, do you know like what kind of matchmaking does Elysia use? Like the one from Felix?
Um, so I haven't actually played like current Elysian. The last that I remember, it was still like you needed a room code to join, but they might have changed that. In which case, I don't know how they're doing it.
I think they are doing some sort of matchmaking. Like we don't need some room code, and it's quite active there. I'm also looking for some sort of matchmaking stuff, but it's hard to find a cheap one.
Yeah. I think that was maybe also partially why I just decided to go for like a lobby browser, because the game in its current state, it's kind of like since there's not custom lobbies yet, there's not like too much difference between where you go, so you could just join the lobby with the most people and have a decent experience right now, I think. But yeah, like
Nice.
stuff like connection and like optimizing for best latency and probably just like a whole bunch of other things I haven't thought about yet.
I actually tried the link, but I think there is no lobby currently active now. Maybe after this meetup, if someone is interested, we can try out a round or two. Maybe.
Yeah. And you can also do the practice mode if you just want to run around.
Ah.
Yeah, what's everyone else been up to?
Don't everyone speak at once now.
Imaginer, how have you been?
All right. Been busy. The Hubs Foundation is preparing for our first AGM and issuing
General
memberships and stuff. Yeah, annual general meeting. Yep. And elections. So that's happening from November 1st to 5th.
Election season.
Yep.
Yep, by coincidence.
Who?
Yeah. Well, we tried to get them as early as we could, and that happened to be right before the deadline for when we had to have them. So, yep.
Who are you trying to elect, by the way? Like,
directors and officers for the nonprofit. So, whoever happens to nominate themselves for the various positions, and yeah, so we're hoping probably going to be 2 or 3, maybe a few more Haven't gotten too many nominations yet, but a couple.
Do
Well,
you guys have a website for the NGO? For Hubs Foundation?
Yes, it is hubsfoundation.org.
Thank you.
And did we officially launch version 2.0 of Hub's Cloud Community Edition since the last WebXR meetup?
I think so. I think I mentioned it in the last stream. I don't remember. M sub 2. Maybe you can remind me. Did we talk about the better storage and backup solutions last meetup?
well, last meetup I wasn't here, so I don't know if Source Group remembers.
Oh, that would be source code then.
Well, in any case, now the storage is much more durable since it's not on the computing node itself. And
Yep.
and so it survives things like a cluster upgrade, which is nice, especially if you're using managed Kubernetes, because they like to do that every month or three.
Mm.
And so with the new storage, it goes seamlessly. It just upgrades and you're still fine, and you've got a newer version of the operating system.
Very
It
nice.
unfortunately turned out to be a breaking change, so we had to get some other stuff in line, like a proper backup and restore solution, so people could move over.
Yep. But the bright side is now you get local backups on your own machine whenever you want.
Yeah, which is good, and that contributes to the thing we want, where if you wanted to run a server for a month or three and then shut it down, you can do that and then make a backup. And then if you want to do it again next year, you can revive your old server with everything intact.
Yeah, that does sound pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we've been wrestling the fact a lot of people would like to run a server but are kind of put off by the cost, which is something like $1 a day. And that's a lot of people are interested, but not interested quite that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to double check what version of Community Edition I'm running this on. I probably will need to make an upgrade.
Right.
We
Yes,
have migration instructions.
Yeah. So if you look at the node script, the package.json, you should. The new version is version 2.0.
There's 2 sessions at ImmersiveX that will use hubs.
Journey of building AVR. I guess I'll quickly open these tabs for the stream.
I've been spending most of my time this week on non-WebXR stuff. I'm getting remote storage, improvements to remote storage. Been very educational as far as the strengths and weaknesses of S3 compatible storage.
Yeah, I've never really had to like broach much of that ecosystem beyond like S3 itself.
Yeah, it's well, I wanted to get us moving over to that as a solution because it's more, again, more durable, more reliable than storage right on the server itself, which is what
Right.
the server the old version of our server does. And I mean, that's fine for a number of purposes, but if you want something serious, you really want something like S3 to back it up because it's reliable and it infinitely expandable.
Mm.
And you can administer it with other tools, and it's I mean, and these are all things you can make storage on your node reliable, but it tends to be one of those a custom setup where you have custom scripts to do everything, and if someone else has to come in and sysadmin, they have no idea how it's done.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to do is re-engineer it so you can spin up additional application servers and increase the capacity.
Mm.
So I actually have it also running on my Kubernetes cluster. I'm trying to move everything there. So I'm trying to have a proper setup. So if I'm ever slashed on it, I'm ready. Not that I will be, but at least I know I've made the preparations.
Mm.
Do we have anyone planning to give a talk today?
Not to my knowledge. Just kind of a casual get together this time around.
Mm-hmm.
Unless anyone wants to. I mean, people are always free if there's a lull in the presentations.
I have a deck that I delivered for MetaConnect for the WebXR roundtable there,
Oh,
and then there's a variation on that that doesn't have as much technical gory detail that I delivered at the Silicon Valley VR meetup that same week. I guess that was last month now, full month or a little more than a month ago, whenever MetaConnect was. I can whip those out if
I'd be
people are
interested in
interested,
seeing
but-
the one with the technical gory details.
yeah.
Sure. I don't want to. I know I tend to dominate conversations, but does anybody have any other topics they want to exhaust first, so I don't doesn't become the Matt show 5 minutes in? It's okay if it truly
It's
nobody
okay.
has anything.
It's been
else
like
to-
20 minutes. You're fine.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right. Let me find the file and remember how this works. There it is. Rebecca plus Quest browser. And okay. And then I can share my screen, but can't I share the document as well somehow? I hit place and then do something.
Well, we have the media
Yeah,
frame at the
place
top.
on
Is
the-
there more than one media frame in this room?
Yeah, it's on the stage. I
Yeah,
remember someone came in and like made a custom one time, but I don't know how they did that.
Oh, that was probably me. I just dropped in an object with a media frame on it.
Oh, I see.
It's so
I can do
funny
that
because
again if this one doesn't work.
yeah, because obviously, as Imaginer and Doug Reader knows, like I was contributing a little bit to Hubs over the last, I don't know, 6 months, and the PDF JS support in Hubs was actually very tricky to upgrade and keep working. But I only know it from the subatomic level. I actually don't know how the fuck to upload a PDF. It's not obvious. The upload doesn't say anything about PDFs. It just says a bunch of other stuff. But should I just give that a try and see?
You can drag and drop PDFs in.
Yeah, let's see what the hell happens. Let's just see what.
I'm not sure whether I've tried using the browse thing before. Theoretically, it should work, but
Oh, I never learned to think
I've
theoretical.
never
So
tried
it's,
it.
no, you know what? I'll just share my screen actually, because I think the PowerPoint is slightly more up to date. So if I share my screen and I use the operating system settings, but I guess I've got to open this first. Okay, so I've got that. And if I say share screen, allow, and I go to PowerPoint, is that
It's loading.
okay?
There it is.
And I can move it to the stage, I guess.
Yep.
Yep.
And oh, I see it. Kind of, there's a frame that's appearing
Yeah.
for it to
Yep.
snap
You have to
to.
move it into
Yeah.
it.
Is that good for folks, or it looks
yeah,
it
let
looks
me-
wrong? There you go. Yeah, whoever can.
Yeah, I got it.
This keeps happening in my career where it's like I get into the guts of things and I have no idea how the product works.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to have that happen.
Interesting.
Anyways, yeah. So this was meant to be presented. This was created to be presented at a WebXR meetup that happened at MetaConnect. That was an invite-only thing before MetaConnect, before the keynote started. And there was a W3C representative from Apple there that represents Apple's interests in WebXR. And there was a woman there who I think used to work for Microsoft, if memory serves. But I don't remember I don't remember either of their names at this. I really don't remember. But it turns out she lives in my neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
as we were chatting afterward.
Wow.
But yeah, as some of you might know, my company Rebecca Specialties have been working in WebXR since about 2022, and I've got such a positive affinity for hubs because seeing hubs work in a MetaQuest 2 with about this many people, maybe 20 people or something, and I was recording video the whole time, and the battery lasted 2 hours. And that to me was the existence proof of open standards are here, they can work, and whatever. And the hub's performance wasn't perfect or whatever, but I was like, this is all, talking to Dom and some of the Mozilla people at the time, I was like, this is all tractable. So then chipping away at this for a little while, and we've for this crowd of people, I guess, like we've been working with all of the vendors. We've given feedback to HTC, the remnants of the browser team there that incited them to update from their old Firefox-based Wolvik to the latest Wolvik Chromium. So on the Vive XR Elite and the Vive Focus Vision, you'll find that those are much more workable browsers than what they had on those devices. And of course, as you know, we give a lot of feedback to the Meta folks in public in the WebXR Discord. I do the same thing for HTC folks if any of them are fucking in there, but they're not. And yeah, and there's upstream stuff with Google folks. That's usually the Google folks I see at Kronos meetings, Kronos group meetings around WebGPU and GLTF and stuff, and we give sort of feedback there. And just trying to get these open standards ubiquitous across enough of these devices so that selfishly we can publish our product everywhere that has a standards compliant browser. I'm not going to talk too much about the other incoming sort of devices, but our immersive PWA does work on the Samsung Galaxy XR, including Gaze. We didn't have to change one line of code to make that work.
Oh, that's nice.
Or or optimize anything. In particular, the deployment to the Google Play is a little is different, but it's actually more standard. We'll get into that in a second. But yeah, I've got a small team, and my engineer and I work together at Roblox, and my designer and I work together at PlayStation, and I have a long storied history across shipping products in Silicon Valley, and there's a subset of things there. So we shipped Factotum, which is our spatial first project portfolio management and value stream mapping product. So it doesn't just it's sort of a digital twin of software projects or technology project management, except it can go across the whole portfolio. So what we shipped, the 1.0 that we shipped onto the MetaQuest store as the first paid immersive PWA, was one that looks at things sort of project by project. And the sort of professional version of that will be one that looks at an entire portfolio, like an entire GitHub org digital twin. We do all the data processing on the device. We don't have a cloud service, so all your private data stays private on your XR device. And that's probably actually the major innovation here, is taking this sort of data center sized workload and running it on the mobile XR device at the same time as the XR visuals and interactions. Yeah, we also we initially thought we would, well, let me back up. So spatial logo is a thing we shipped to Apple Vision Pro using NativeScript to try out NativeScript and see what that was like. We had just come off the big Infinite Reality contract that we did for them. The vast majority of that work ended up in open source as well. And I'm not here to defend Infinite Reality / Napster / whatever it is. But when we got off that project, instead of diving right back into the product, we did kind of not a hackathon exactly, but like we did a thing that this game studio called Double Fine called Amnesia Fortnite. Double Fine are the makers of Psychonauts and Brutal Legend and Costume Quest and myriad other games. Their new game Keeper just came out, and it's amazing. So we took what we thought would be 2 weeks. It ended up kind of being 3 weeks, and then working through all the deployment, it kind of ended up taking 4 weeks. But taking the logo programming language, some people might know it as Turtle Draw, and making that a room scale XR experience. And so we did that with NativeScript driving Reality Kit, and we learned a lot from that and helped inform our future roadmap. And then, yeah, we did all this engineering to bring the Infinite Reality Ethereal Napster to WebGPU from GLSL. And so we learned a lot about the Wigzl, the WGSL, the WebGPU shader language, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And also lifting and shifting that WebXR app into an iOS native application. And for that, we used React Native. Starting in summer of 2023, as soon as there was a visionOS simulator, I worked, before I had any employees yet, I was really hedging my bets on the browser stuff. And so we started a parallel work stream to bring React Native to visionOS. But everything had to be brought to visionOS. So not just React Native, not just the BGFX 3D renderer that Babylon Native uses, not just WebGPU, but also CocoaPods, the sort of fundamental sort of software package, like it's like CocoaPods is like the NPM for the Apple ecosystem. That needed visionOS support added, and it had to be not just added and merged, but then released. And we did with my partner CallStack. They helped me with React Native when I was at PlayStation, and we brought that to PlayStation. They also helped me at BlueJeans to bring React Native to Windows 7 and 8 in 2016. So we've got a long collaboration going on there. And yeah, so I never take sole credit for anything, because obviously the open source contributors had to review and merge our code and then release it. And myself and Oscar from CallStack did the vast majority of operationalizing Vision OS and open source ecosystems. Maybe somebody else would have stepped in to do it, but I don't know who that would have been exactly. And so, yeah, first paid immersive PWA on Meta Horizon, the first third-party one to really exist. That was not kind of a demo app that was re-uploaded. So that shipped in August. That's I think I'll talk about it in the next slide maybe, but we had a business plan of how much we would charge and in what way. That was completely nuked from orbit as a complete surprise, in the way that the Meta Horizon store treats PWAs differently than any other app in their whole store ecosystem. So we had to give it away for free. And we also turned out could not charge a subscription, also a complete surprise. I think they've updated the documentation based on our feedback to them. Super bummer. Super bummer. Upside is that they are using the digital goods API, which is a W3C standard that was kind of championed by Google and a few other people. And this is kind of how you do in-app purchases inside of a browser. Digital goods API does support subscriptions as in the standard and does support it on Android as well. Meta Horizon just chooses to have a sort of a crippled version of the standard implemented, even though they're obviously based on Android and Chromium. And our plan now is what we're going to do is we're actually going to replace our immersive PWA with a native enclosure of the same JavaScript code. So that React Native DataScript stuff we've been sort of chipping away at in parallel, it turns out it's going to be a necessity for us to monetize in any way. And no one is more bummed about this than I am. But live and learn, and not my first rodeo, hence the parallel work stream where we kind of kept chipping away at that. But I do try to kind of be positive where the team at Meta obviously took a lot of our feedback, operationalized this for us, and making this possible is a far cry from the WebXR private little roundtable we had with them at MetaConnect in 2023, where Liam Broza and I were like, how do we monetize using open standards? And at the time, not going to call out a specific name, but the engineering manager said, well, people could just type in their credit card number. And I was like, that is so high friction. Like, you wouldn't make people do that for Beat Saber DLC, for instance. And his response was, like, people will type in their credit card number on the VR keyboard if your thing is valuable enough. And that was not an acceptable answer to me. And it was the first indication that third-party success was not something that was top priority for them. First-party success is a different story.
Yeah.
Huge bummer, but it is an achievement, and a lot of work from everybody kind of came together to make that happen. And so people that have different constraints than I do may very well find great success on the Meta Horizon store. I'm going to go more into some of the history and detail of it, but still to this day, we are not listed anywhere. The week that we shipped, we were not listed in What's New. You have to search for us to find us. And after all the reorgs, they've had like 7 reorgs this year. There is no one in store operations that we've been found that can help us figure this out. And the browser engineering folks are not the people to figure it out either. And being at MetaConnect and talking with people directly, there's glimmers of hope, but in the weeks after, there's no follow-up or actionable thing for anything. Versus shipping the same app on the Pico store, one, we can go off platform for payments. Pico doesn't force you to use on platform payments and then limit the ways you can use it. So that helped a bunch. But also, when we shipped on the Pico store, we were there in What's New, and we actually rose to, like, I think number 4 in What's New that first week we shipped because of that visibility. So there are choices that could be made, and no one at Pico lifted a goddamn finger, by the way, other than to make PWAs possible. There is no store relationship or whatever else. Like, their autonomic systems surfaced us and whatever. So I'm going to try to zip through these because there's a lot. But if anybody has a question or wants me to stop and go into more detail, just say so. I'm looking at my slides. I'm not looking at the hubs, so I'm not seeing hands up or the chat. Meta made a weird fork of bubble wrap, which is a thing used to package PWAs, but it's not even a fork. They kind of like compiled a fork and then uploaded the assets into a repo, but it's not in a standard way. So you can't npm install it. You have to make a git clone. It conflicts if you have a bubble wrap, other bubble wrap in your repo for the platforms that do it in a standard way, like Android XR or Pico, or some of the other platforms I can't talk about right now. And we figured it out, but again, this is only someone as stupid and crazy as I am would have bothered to even follow through and figure it out. We can't continuously deploy because there's mandatory manual web UI right now. They have a command line tool hypothetically beyond bubble wrap. It actually doesn't have the features necessary to recertify age stuff and things. So we can't do continuous deployment. That's a manual process. That's not fantastic and also incongruent with other platforms. The docs were wrong and or not up to date in several things. We gave all this feedback to them. Most of the docs have been updated, but there's no contractual obligation or we aren't getting paid to do QA for them. So we didn't follow through and like cross check that they updated stuff, and that's correct now. I don't mean to be an asshole, but I'm not running a philanthropy, so my resources are not sort of indefatigable. So indefatigable, sorry. My resources are not infinite here, so it's possible the docs are not updated. But what was obvious to us is that those had never been QA'd or cross-checked by anybody up to that point. So it should be better, but probably not perfect. There's unannounced UI changes in the developer dashboard where one day, we had deployed our sort of, before it was public on the store, we were doing deployments, and then one day the deployments stopped working to our developer headsets. And it turned out we had to recertify something, but it was in a new place in the UI hidden. There was no alert, there was no message. And I've been told that even without PWA, this is par for the course for this platform. So even people that are making Unity games and not progressive web apps for enterprise told me yeah, this happens all the time. Some potential missteps could be called out better, and real specifically, there's a bunch of ADB logcat stuff that we got asked to do in DMs that we did do, where if you have to know how to read the chicken bones that are in the ADB logcat to reverse engineer what the hell's happening. So we gave them feedback about that message should just say, your JSON signing key in your root is wrong, as opposed to here's 8 nested exceptions with 50 lines of stack trace apiece. That's feedback we gave them. Store classified us as a travel app, and we can't fix it without resubmitting the whole app and re-going through certification. So we classified ourselves as a productivity and sort of enterprise app, and it reclassified us as a fucking travel app, which is fucking stupid and ridiculous randomly. And which makes discoverability even harder. It was just some of this. At some point, I was just so annoyed at someone had to do more work to make this more hostile. Not that I'm targeted, but it's just if you had just done less work, this would be less cantankerous. We were unable to charge our base price, and that required us to totally alter our financial forecast and our investor pitch, which is ridiculous. And looking back, I probably would have just said, okay, this actually is not ready. We can't ship using the browser technology. We have to stop what we're doing, get the native container ready, and just use that. In hindsight, that's what I should have done differently, but I was still going in with good faith that we could meet in the middle and things would be resolved. Their service workers and their browser runtime for PWAs is unreliable. And that means that the first time user experience is fine, but when people do start loading data into our app, we can't background sync it. So I do hear noises, so I can. Doug Reader's going. Let's see. Okay. Let's see.
And
and we discussed. Sorry, go ahead.
There was a question from Jimmy Sixtoff a little bit ago.
I'm sorry. What was it?
Did you need to internationalize languages to get Pico users?
We probably will. So we did not. We only shipped on the Pico Global Store, not the mainline China store. And that's something where I think we have a partner that will give us support for localization to APJC, Asia Pacific, Japan, China. But no. So we shipped everywhere that Meta supported that didn't require legal hoops. It was no different than the Apple Connect store or Apple Connect UI. So there's a couple countries there that you have to have like a local corporation or something. I forget which countries those were, but yeah, on Pico we're cognizant. Localization. Same thing with the UAE and the Middle East and Africa. We'll need right to left language support, and we have a potential partner that will pay for that also. But yeah, great. That is a great question. And we discussed most of this publicly in WebXR, just so someone can come into WebXR, do a search in Discord for the error message or whatever it is, and find the conversation. No point in any of this am I trying to make anyone feel bad or call anybody out. It's just how can we all learn at the same time so that nobody has to like spin wheels and waste time and resources in the same way. So on the immersive PWA front, we had a bunch of specific asks for the team at Meta, converting the bubble wrap fork to a standard repo structure, or hey, just publish it to NPM, even if it's namespace to MetaQuest or whatever, like IWER, that's fine. May having to make a Git submodule and whatever was really not. It was more work to do with the way that they did it ultimately for them and for us. You can read this, I guess. I kind of mentioned some of this as I was going through it a second ago. And yeah, there were actually not even reported by us. They were reported by other people in the community on the WebXR Discord. And sure enough, we would go and retest our app, and the browser bug that people were complaining about in the WebXR Discord affected our app as well, even as a PWA on the store. And we're at the same place we were 3 years ago, in my opinion. As far from a black box, from what I can see, they find out about major regressions when the community tells them. If they have internal QA of any kind or automated tests of any kind, it's insufficient. And the point I kept making to them was at MetaConnect, if there was a regression in the platform where Beat Saber DLC wasn't purchasable, there'd be a hanging rope up on that tree on the campus right now. This needs to be treated as seriously as developer success for any other avenue for developers on this platform, including first party. I don't think that's a huge lift. I don't think it's an unreasonable ask if people are trying to build a business around the platform. Generally, at MetaConnect and elsewhere, there's all these improvements that go into like their Unity fork that a good percentage of them should show up in WebXR, and they just don't, or they show up 2 years later. And I was kind of asking, like, getting parity there with these other engines would just plain old make it competitive. Right now, to me, in my opinion, WebXR is not a you cannot run a competitive business alongside these other proprietary technologies on the MetaQuest platform. And that's a bummer. And there's interesting implications about that. But yeah. And I have my notes down here that you can read. The imbalance and siloed deployment of this ongoing innovation continuously puts immersive web apps at a distinct disadvantage on MetaQuest platforms. Distinct disadvantage is my operative phrase there. So the other aspect is improved web standards coverage. So still, MetaQuest will soon be one of the only active IHVs that actively denies developers web payments. It's available in Android. They have to manually turn it off in their packaging of Android Chromium for Android. They could choose to stop doing that, and they don't. We have our own personal goals of not just having people use our product solo, but in groups. But we don't want to have. We still want to make it so we have no cloud services, and to do that, Web Bluetooth LE, and we need Web Bluetooth to do that, and we need WebRTC to be enabled with some of the sub features again that have been enabled in Chromium for Android for quite some time. That Meta chooses to turn off. That would be nice. Web USB is more optional, but talking to DoD and some government folks, some of their employees use assistive devices that are little USB-C dongles, and we need to be able to address those across Web USB. That would be nice. In native land, we can do whatever we want. We can make a Web USB native module. That is what we're doing. But the stuff being enabled in the browser, just like they are in Chromium for Android upstream, would be nice. And the native observables has been available in beyond Chrome Canary for a while now. And one of the ways that we fit this data center sized workload onto the mobile headset is by using observables and these async structures, functional programming structures, very heavily. And native observables going into native in JavaScript should help give us even higher performance ceiling. Obviously, it works right now, but we can do even better in terms of lowering our CPU usage once this is enabled. And yeah, all of these are in upstream Chromium for Android now, and they just need to be enabled, or rather, stop being disabled in some cases. Oops, sorry. Pause there for 1 second. Any questions or elaborations? Anybody wants?
You can probably keep moving to the next one.
Okay. So here's the one stuff you guys probably care about. So we did a lot of internal engineering. We did a lot of stuff for the Infant Reality contract as well. And so we've got a very kind of honed opinion on this based on bringing WebGPU into React Native, which we did, and some of the other stuff. So high-level goals for users to see hundreds of pathfinding avatars or agents, and kind of doubling the current variety of materials at 45 FPS locked, so we get a clean time warp to 90 with more battery life. So there's some things that did help, or that there's some things here that in the short term that do help. WebGPU shipped this feature called subgroups, which is on by default in Wigzil, and that makes warp level operation kernels 2 to 3 times faster. And that allows you to have crowds fully jointed avatars that fully animate and pathfind at greater than 45 FPS. Right now, subgroups is not enabled in the web GPU on the Quest 2 and Quest 3. So that's one ask that we have that's already shipping in upstream Chromium. And actually WebKit as well, if you know where to look for the WebKit one.
The really big one here is enabling multi-draw indirect, which is an experimental web GPU feature. And what this allows it is instead of the GPU doing work and then going back to the CPU to ask for more work, a compute shader can kick off more compute shader work without going back to the CPU. This is a thing that you can do in Vulkan and whatever. There's GDC talks about it and whatever. This is actually a huge deal. This was a feature I talked about with Google and other folks at a Kronos meeting at GDC 2 years ago. And they probably already had it planned, but when they announced it, I was like, fuck yes, this is awesome. Yeah, it's the what you think about in terms of draw calls and the stuff you have to dispatch to the GPU from the CPU, it just blows that bottleneck out of the water if you've structured your architecture well. And you can kind of double the number of heterogeneous. So not like 9 million instances of the same model with the same animation texture or whatever. That's sort of cool, but you can actually double the number of like totally unique models that you're drawing per second, but you actually end up still saving 3 milliseconds of frame time, which is amazing. And this is when we talk about competitiveness of WebXR in browser. This is one of those things that we start to get toward to being able to do competitive stuff with native or proprietary engines. Having the timestamp queries for per device tuning is kind of key. One, so that we can kind of tune down dynamically our own draw distances or other knobs to make sure that we are not constantly hitting thermal headroom and getting like really like spiky sort of experience, not in terms of frame rate, but even in terms of scaling quality. That will also help us scale battery life dynamically within the engine, but it also gets us to where we can, when we're seeing timestamp queries go out of norms, to send us telemetry so we understand what's going on in the data workload and the rendering workload at those times. That's really key observability that we would like to have. And then, of course, the WebXR and WebGPU binding. Our entity component system we're developing is GPU native. It does almost nothing on the CPU. All the data's on the GPU. We don't want to do what people do right now, where you kind of maintain a duplicate list or duplicate data structures in JavaScript and on the GPU. We're moving that all to the GPU. So everything's in one place. There's no copies. The synchronization doesn't have to happen nearly as often. WebXR and WebGPU makes that possible. Whereas right now, we could put an ECS and GPU, but getting into the GL part, the sort of graphics part of it and not having to maintain duplicate things is not feasible. And as I discovered a week or two ago, and I posted in one of the channels, Igalia is actively working on WebXR on WebGPU in WebKit open source today. For months they've been working on it. So this is on the way for at least WebKit on Linux. And it's there in Chromium under flags. And so there is some compatibility stuff potentially with legacy WebXR, WebGL based things. So kind of the high level of like, what can't we do right now? Like we can't create like an Invisimoles like location-based AR thing right now. We have some of the ingredients here, but not all. This is not the app I want to build, but I'm thinking about what are other amazing apps people could build that would get 1 million users a month or something. I have that kind of growth, and right now, you can make a What the Bat clone and GL backed WebXR today. You can make there are lots of things you can do. But so far, none of those WebXR apps, get the retention of these proprietary things. So yeah, so those are the short-term asks for WebXR and WebGPU, and it really is focused on not things that are specific to my application, but I'm always thinking about if I'm hitting this ceiling, other people are hitting this ceiling. What can we do? Longer term, there's just a general problem where Metaverse Standards Forum, right now, my opinion is that there is no way to make a sort of a web first competitive implementation of any of these standards that are proposed in draft or otherwise. Can you technically do it? Yes. Can you make a demo that does run at 45 or 60 FPS? Yes. Can you integrate enough of them into a product where it matters? I don't think so. And it's not from a lack of trying or a lack of creativity on our part or a lack of spend or collaboration. So this is kind of saying more of the same sort of thing. In fact, I'm realizing these are duplicate almost, which is not my intent. So I must have fucked something up here. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, this slide is wrong. I don't know what happened, but the notes are correct. Right now, even with subgroups, we can't do cross workgroup sync. We don't have the atomics to be able to do that in WebGPU today. It's kind of a known thing that everyone knows that needs to get done. And this is why it's a longer term thing. Like the standard part of it needs to be sort of figured out across enough diversity of hardware and stuff. But once we have cross workgroup sync, again, we raise the ceiling again even further in terms of how much stuff we can get off the CPU almost entirely. So the CPU is just doing input handling, and move stuff more onto the GPU. And I think what we're seeing, and everybody can see in the hardware that's shipping, is clocks on CPUs. The instructions, like we're not hitting like a 2x more floating point on the CPU every generation on mobile XR chipsets. We're seeing that on the GPU more, and I think that's correct. But yeah, Wigzil barriers are workgroup local. There's no grid wide barrier. So you have to do extra passes and stuff and use extra memory bandwidth to orchestrate the stuff. It's not unworkable, but it also doesn't scale really well from an end-to-end product perspective. And actually, Bevy, which is the engine you guys might have heard of, their own docs and examples call out these missing web GPU features effectively. And so there's a bunch of like their web demos that are disabled because they can't. Without these features, their engine gets so inefficient that there's a bunch of for really cool advanced stuff that they can't really do it. And something or another. Other techniques we couldn't really implement in an efficient way. Virtual shadow maps or nanite-like visibility buffers. You can do it in a demo. You can make a 60 FPS demo that runs in Quest 3 that does this. But if you want to do other stuff, like in a full end-to-end product workload, based on all of our experiments and work to date, it doesn't really appear to be feasible or possible. Even stuff like using voxel cone ray tracing for multi-bounce lighting, which very famously the Tomorrow Children did on PS4. We have the GPU compute of a PS4 on a Galaxy XR device and on an Apple Vision Pro, first gen Apple Vision Pro, but we kind of can't get to that compute in an efficient way right now without some of these web GPU features. And with these features, we would really get to these PS4 class visuals, as well as extending the battery life on the XR2 devices, where even if you aren't doing voxel cone ray tracing for multi-bounce lighting and whatever else, you would at least lower memory bandwidth, memory copies, and all this other crap that increases thermals, but thermals are also like related to your battery life as well. So what we're doing is, like I said, we're kind of doing this native JS app container. We have to charge base price for our Pro Enterprise variant in addition to the subscription. It's not really an option, even if never mind what investors think of our business plan or whatever. Like, this business has to sustain itself, and this is how I've chosen to do it, in addition to contracts and POCs and stuff like this. Right now, in my opinion, and it's there in the WebXR Discord, even as some people have deleted some older messages, the screenshots still exist. um, the browser runtime is just too unstable for enterprise and military expectations. For 5-minute games that people try once and never go into again, sure, it doesn't matter, but that's not what I'm building right now. So what this means is that we, Rebecca, can control the uptake and deployment of these WebXR and WebGPU features. When we shipped React Native WebGPU so that we could onboard the Infant Reality Showcase app into iOS, we turned on all the WebGPU experimental features and used them in Wigzil to get some of these performance gains. And so this kind of allows us to deploy these open standards, these open APIs, which is great, but also still deploy the browser technology, but not wait for these teams to do their uptake and figure out their quality and other stuff. And it does put more onus on us in terms of testing and QA, but I'd say the onus is already on us for testing and QA, regardless, based on everything that we've seen to date. And this also means we can control phased updates to specific cohorts outside of the browser and operating system update cycle. So if I want to send, multi-draw indirect as a feature and enable a Wigzil shader for our thing that uses it, I can do that to 1% of the albino soccer moms that live in Nebraska. I can phase that in and not have it be an all or nothing, or having to have some customers on a PTC channel, which, like there's too much at this point that's out of my control. And I think I've been very patient trying to, trust and in good faith have that be delegated, but it's just not working out for us. So we can still use open APIs and still use open source and find problems in our deployment and contribute fixes back to WebKit or Chromium or these other upstream browser things. So I'm still very excited by that. I think this will turn into a more virtuous cycle of validating draft standards than what we have today as a whole ecosystem, not just from Rebecca's perspective, my company's perspective. And then what this also allows is, it's not just us that's like, oh my God, this firmware update broke a whole bunch of stuff. And then there's a big apology letter publicly, and oh my God, we need to do a better job. And then it just happens again the next month, and then the next month, and then the next month. Enterprises feel this also. So one we found is that a lot of enterprise customers, that if they had a test deployment of MetaQuest devices, they've canceled that and are going to different vendors now, or they've canceled it entirely. It's completely put them off of XR entirely, and that's a huge bummer for the ecosystem as a whole. But when we deploy our own native app and we don't need the browser runtime to be updated, we can control more of that with our native modules, deployments of those things. Users can pin to a specific firmware version. Even at AWE in 2022, I remember talking to a guy from ArborXR where I was like, ArborXR has this specific feature that blocks updates, and I'm like, why is that such a big deal? And even back then, the guy was like, the quality is so variable, people just can't deal. When they're training 100 workers a day, and all of a sudden there's a random update that, even if you've turned off updates, but it's a quote unquote emergency update, it still doesn't ask you, blah, blah, blah. And I don't manage fleets of devices. Maybe this is totally better now. And what he told me was accurate then, but is not accurate now. But these are all inputs into this solution that we're kind of moving toward. And so this kind of allows us to accelerate web GPU adoption in some of these JS frameworks. Allows us to bring WebXR to NativeScript and React Native. So another gory detail here is that we, over the last 9 months or so, working with Microsoft and MongoDB and CallStack, we've brought the Node API standard into React Native, and we are clearing the way for these standard native modules that you build once, and they work across all of these JavaScript runtimes. They work across Node.js, Bun, Deno, NativeScript, React Native, even Electron to a large degree. And what this means is that when we build these open API, these W3C or Chronos standard native modules, they can get used across any JavaScript application framework. That gives us flexibility on the WebXR side. It gives the whole ecosystem flexibility so that those different application frameworks can compete without users being trapped by a siloed native module ecosystem that basically stops them from switching to anything else. Let me see, budget resources. I'll skip past that. But yeah, that's and here, the Node API work. That work was made public in July, I want to say. And then at React Universe, there were two separate main stage talks about this from Microsoft and MongoDB. So I don't give up on anything very easily. It's been a long journey. Hindsight is 2020, but I do not regret acting in good faith, putting the effort in the ecosystem, and having an open mind and an open heart that it would meet in the middle. I would not change that. I think everybody deserves a chance. Organizations and individuals deserve a chance to step up and do right. In this case, if I was running a philanthropy, or if I had more resources than available for my commercial venture here, maybe I would hold my breath a little bit longer on it. But that's not where I'm at. I'm at a very and to be clear, the amount of spend and money that I've personally put in it, because we have not raised any money for this at all. The amount of money I put into this, any other team trying to build doing this stuff would have exhausted their pre-seed round with long before we ever deploying anything. Talking to here in San Francisco where I live, I talk to lots of entrepreneurs, and I'm just like, yeah, if you get $20 million from Greylock, sure, you can snowplow your way through this blizzard, or if you whatever it is. But if you're being monetized in the orders of low millions, this ecosystem is not there yet. And with Snap Spectacles and their WebXR implementation coming out, that's shipping today on Snap Spectacles, and Android XR, there's a lot of hopeful things that make me hopeful, but I also just can't wait. and we need to operationalize our application on existing headsets, not just the ones that are coming in the future. And yeah, so bittersweet perhaps of a story, but I desperately am trying to be fair and data driven and talk about facts here. So if you felt like I didn't find the right tone, that's feedback that I feel like I can take. Any questions or any slides you want me to go back to look at the sub bullets of or anything like that?
I'll take a stab at a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of Portal VR that Greg Fodor's doing, and do you think it will have any effect on your business or marketability or any of that?
Yes, I've seen this. Yeah, he was at SVVR when I did this talk, actually, and we talked about this a lot. He did actually bring up the Factotum application and his little, he has like one of those foldable Androids, and our app did come up, and he was able to kind of use his controller thing to control it. So Portal VR, it's still flat. It's not 3D. Like it doesn't give you stereo parallax. And our application, we came at design from scratch, assuming stereo and parallax. It's not a flat app with a little bit of depth. Everything about the digital twin is designed and optimized for true stereoscopic spatial. So he did try our application. It did work, so that was cool to see. But he's like, it's hard to tell what's going on. I'm like, yeah, without depth and stereo and parallax, you're looking at a shit ton of data playing back at a very fast time frame. And this is why we are doing this spatial first, is because flat apps don't work for this volume of data. So yeah, I am aware, and he did test our app, which was cool, at the SVVR meetup. And so I chatted with him a little bit. We didn't talk about any other collaboration or anything like that. Beyond that, though.
Okay.
To be fair, there is an anaglyph mode.
Yeah,
But I
he
get what
did
you mean
show me
about
that. Yes,
parallax.
but that is not colors.
Oh
and
no,
other
no,
stuff.
not compared to what you're suggesting. I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you are technically correct. You can put on 3D glasses, like blue-red 3D glass anaglyph glasses, and I thought it was a super cute, stupid pet trick, for sure. And by some coincidence, like the next week, my Nightmare on Elm Street 4K box set came, and I watched the 3D part of Freddy's Dead with anaglyph glasses on, and I was like, oh, I wonder if we could recreate the 3D part of Freddy's Dead in Portal XR, since he's going to distribute anaglyph, I guess, for every part of it. But yeah, with the, you can go, first of all, please go search for and try out our app on the MetaQuest store, or the Pico store for that matter, and give it a shot. It is free, as mandatory by the MetaQuest store, what the MetaQuest store demands of immersive PWAs, and no other platform, no other kind of technology. And our intro demo thing kind of is a very slow pace to get you familiar with what you're seeing. But you can see when you load a public data source like the React Native repository itself, or Mozilla Hubs for that matter, we play back the digital twin at 2 days per second, and at that rapidity, the sort of artifacting from the anaglyph approach doesn't work. It's also not the field of view is obviously way too narrow and whatever as well. So you, again, like it's the thing that we're doing of high volume, very high volumes of very high dimensional data, and playing it back at an accelerated timeline. Again, it was built for spatial. And I got many questions about, oh, you should make this a flat app. And I'm like, there's literally 20 competitors that do this with flat apps. Why would I? That's red ocean, not blue ocean. Why would I do that? But the cool thing, I think, from just a pure technologist perspective, is this. I think everybody here believes XR is this new medium that every once in a while there is usually a game, obviously, there's something that leans into it in a new way of thinking that's totally native to XR, that's not grafting an existing thing onto XR, and that you have this holy shit moment where you go, oh my god, XR is the future. And so, and I've gotten that response from people in our ideal customer profile, potential buyers of volume licenses, who have the sort of bleeding from the neck problem that we're trying to solve, and they're like, XR is this weird thing. You're a technical founder. This seems like nerd catnip. Like, why don't you just make a better dashboard? And then they put on the headset, they see their own data played back at this rate, with this whatever, but this amount of legibility, and they take it off, and they literally go to Best Buy and buy a Quest 3, because that's what the most easily available thing is. And they're like, I don't know if I want to buy your application, but I now know I need to pay attention to this, because this is not the leapfrog potential here for all kinds of use cases is amazing.
Are you aware of? Have you worked at all with Flow Immersive? Jason Marsh is the guy behind that, and they're not WebXR, but they do have WebXR. Like they have a native GL build of part of their immersive analytics platform, flow.gl. And
oh yeah.
And what they provide is basically a a PowerPoint or an IDE to develop spatial presentations essentially of data.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I worked with them a little bit trying to figure out how to, if it was possible, doing like a bit of feasibility for like network operations center data, something that would go up
Yeah.
on a dashboard in in a NOC environment. And
Mhm.
they were not really interested in, at the time, real time data flows. Like they wanted something stable on a CSV file, and then
Yes.
that was their kind of build it, and it was kind of a static sort of solution. I've heard
Yep.
that they have some more ability. Anyway, it's a very interesting space. I think you're onto something.
I appreciate that. And yeah, network operations data, the one I get the most in that area is SecOps and DevSecOps,
Yeah,
where
exactly.
especially in with New York financials, where people have war rooms where they're projecting huge things onto the screen or whatever, and it's literally like $50 million a year to rent out that entire 10,000 square foot floor near K Street. And so virtualizing things makes sense. Keeping the data sovereign is kind of mandatory. But I agree, rendering static data is not it is hard with a lowercase h, to be sure. It's not wasn't easy. The real-time streaming of it is, and crunching it all in real time on the device with no cloud service is probably the major innovation. Yeah, I'm familiar with FlowGL. They are using a lot of the sort of open visualization stuff that's coming out of the OpenJS Foundation. And I'm a big fan of all that stuff, but it is just kind of, here's something you would see in 2D, and now it has a little bit of depth. It's not a fundamentally different way to see things. It's still very cool, but it's kind of like there's a lot of data visualization stuff in XR startups and stuff about 8 or 9 years ago, and almost all of them, and Flow is better than this, but almost all of them were like, hey, now you can walk around the bar chart. And it's like, well, what? Who the fuck cares? How does that change anything about anything other than now I've got a thing on my face while I see a bar chart? And so there's some really cool demos Flow Immersive has for um, what's the word I want to use? Pretty dense data, but when it's a scatter plot and there's that much data, it kind of works against I would say a weakness of most headsets now, which is aliasing and the resolution. So it has the same problem as if you've got a Grafana dashboard that's a scatter plot and you go to screen share it, the video compression, however good it is, kind of fucks up the graph for the people who aren't seeing it native on the screen. So that aliasing problem with fine lines or dots, that vanishing point, the shimmer that occurs. This was a thing going in where we were like, we got to just have a different way to come at this. But yeah, Flow Immersive is cool. I like what they're doing, but I'm also aware that they are focused on the lift and shift of existing 2D visuals into with some 3D, and that they are not trying to be, so far they're not trying to be a real-time data platform, cloud or not.
Yeah, I look forward to looking at your stuff, and I don't know, I may hit you up with, if I can pick that conversation up where I left it off. I don't know, last year. I'll see if there's any interest.
Yeah, and to be so we have done proof of concept projects that we do fixed price. We do not do time and materials, so that makes it very easy. And we also make it so that we only get paid on delivery. So if some hitch we get caught on that we couldn't foresee, you lose opportunity in terms of time you could have spent starting it yourself or whatever. But that's worked out really well. That's how we worked with Infinite Reality, not on data ingest, but other stuff. For the other customers where we have worked with them on data ingest, that's how we operate. And that's how I also operated when I was on the other side of the negotiating table as well. So with CallStack in the past, those were all milestone-based contracts where they get paid when they deliver, and we try to make it so the milestones are about monthly, which is a good checkpoint for everybody, but also mitigates risk and gives visibility for everybody as well. So, yeah, I would love to hear more about your ops case, especially if you've got a team that has to be co-located right now, or is even remote right now, but is um, have not operating optimally because there's not a good way to see this data. We're hearing a lot from
The
people
guys,
doing AI deployments where they already had a data problem, and with 24/7 agents, even when they do a good job, now they have shit tons more data. And what was already a pain point is now existential for them, where they either have to turn off their agents, which are actually moving their business forward at a good rate, or they have to fundamentally retool their observability. So
yeah, agreed. The guys at the time were interested in, recreating a knock, 8x8 screen system, but without all that overhead and the flexibility to have that recreated wherever they happen to have a headset handy. And that was the high level scope. And if there's also a lot that you can bring to the table that isn't just recreating a 2D system in floating windows, and that's what I think is the interesting part. But
yeah.
as far as I know, they never found anybody to fix that for them. So we'll see.
Yeah. But yeah, if generally about FlowGL, in the OpenJS Foundation, there is a specific track that is all about 3D visualization on the open web using JavaScript. And there's a bunch of frameworks and libraries that fall under that umbrella of OpenJS Foundation. And it's all like super cool. And they have all started transitioning over to WebGPU, which is also great. So there should be more scalability with those sort of off-the-shelf components. So I dare say, if you did just want like virtual monitors with the graphs on them, you could probably vibe code it right now and do okay. But it probably would give you like a 20% better thing, not a multiplier effect, better situation. But yeah, knock SecOps and DevSecOps is what I hear the most from investors and from potential customers. Related to AI, unrelated to AI, SecOps and DevSecOps. A lot of people are having a tough time right now as nation state actor attacks ramp up and a bunch of other stuff, and they're missing things because their tools don't let them use human pattern matching and ingenuity in the way that used to scale. In a way that used to scale, they need to find new ways to scale human pattern matching and ingenuity. And so I hear about that quite a bit. But when I was at McAfee many years ago, there was a network security scanner product I worked on that was called Ballista, and that was called CyberCop Scanner. And even way back when, they made a cute, the engineers made a cute thing where it it rendered a trace route or rendered a network map effectively in like OpenGL 1.0. It was not accelerated, all ran on the CPU, so it was like not. It was very rudimentary, and that knock type visualization stuff probably was a, a subconscious input at the very least into how I've approached some of these things.
Splunk's been playing with AR modes, and there's a couple of other little forays that people have done some test drives on, but nothing interesting as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I agree. I think it's high dimensional, high volume data sets, where you've got 50 different nodes you're watching, 50 different flags off of, and how to visualize that all at the same time is something. But
Speaking of XR and AI, has anyone tried out that new XR blocks library from Google?
Not yet. No. Not me.
Yeah.
I see the post and I'm semi-interested. But if it's another like bit ECS plus 3JS thing, I'm not. I think I've seen that movie before.
Right. Yeah, I haven't dug too deep into the internals. I just know it has that like Gemini integration.
Yeah.
What browser does their XR, the new device, have? The Samsung?
Sorry, say that one more time.
The Samsung, what kind of browser is that using? I mean, do they have a daily? Do they have their own?
Yeah,
it's Android. Yeah, that's straight Android, and it's more in sync and up to date because it is just direct Chromium for Android. So it does unblock some of the stuff I talked about in the deck here about the web standards coverage, web Bluetooth support, all the web RTC features, which Safari also supports, by the way, that Meta chooses not to turn on. So Android XR, by the way, you can just start the simulator. You download Android Studio, install the simulator, and it won't be stereo, but you can try the browser that's in there. And so far, that's accurate to what they shipped, what Samsung just shipped, and is available to people who were able to acquire it immediately. So yeah, it's Chromium 140 Mumble, Chromium for Android 140 Mumble. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember even like months and months ago, because I occasionally look at like the Chromium like patch review area so I can see what like Alex Cooper and
Cyber
people
stalking
are
is good, yeah.
working on. Yeah, hey, it's technically public. But yeah, I remember seeing like
Yes,
XR
exactly.
Android OpenXR extensions like way before like anything had been officially announced, and I was just like, this must be for a new headset.
Yes, it is public. You're not, it's not corporate espionage, or whatever. But it is one of these things that sounds super nerdy. But when I was at PlayStation, keeping an eye on that WebKit repo, because the WebKit, the React Native stack in PlayStation uses JavaScript core from WebKit, and there's a system browser on PlayStation that 4 and 5 and whatever that uses WebKit as the basis, and so. But it was also the same with like GCC and Linux kernel patches. And you go like, oh, that's weird. Why did they just add a new PCI ID for whatever? Who did that? Oh, who do they work for right now? And you can kind of infer things. It's all public, and you also don't want anyone to get in trouble. So it's not a thing to go to the fucking Wall Street Wall Street Journal or whatever. But yeah, you can kind of. As a technologist and an entrepreneur, it sounds like a distraction to go into that level of detail. But to me, it's how you see the trajectories and how you can anticipate where those trajectories are leading and where they intersect. And WebXR and WebGPU and some of this other stuff is an example of that. Same thing with Igalia is doing a lot of commits for WebXR and WebGPU in WebKit for Linux. What does that mean? I don't know. What does that mean? Question mark. There's is there any other activity in their not upstream WebKit repo, but their own repos that provides another clue as to sort of what's going on. And even though we're 10 years into consumer XR at this point, knowing what those trajectories are is still very useful. Because I feel like there's a rebirth that's about to happen based on existing vendors doing what they're doing and new vendors doing things that are different, and kind of knowing the cool thing is with our application, we had it running. We had it running on HoloLens 2 and Oculus Go and whatever. So we really paid up front for this cross-device capability, and it's just paying off in spades now because I've gotten 3 new devices in like the last month, and the app just worked on all of them, including with Gaze for the ones that have Gaze. And so the standards work, and other vendors coming in being more competitive can work. Can kind of right this ship in terms of open standards. So I'm seeing a lot of positive glimmers there. But the reason I just didn't fold it up in August, when I was like, all right, well, the main vendor here is not hospitable to business success. So that's it. If I didn't have these other indicators from doing minor cyber stalking on LinkedIn and GitHub and stuff, I probably would have been more distraught. But we can see these positive things moving forward with vendors and companies that are maybe a little more successfully focused on third-party developer success. And so I'm okay to keep rolling the dice as a result. But yeah, you're right. It's public information. Like if it was secret, they'd have a private fork and only put it all out at the same time. But same thing with GPUs and NVIDIA and AMD and Intel and whatever. You see PCIe show up, or you see Mesa GL get an interesting update. You're like, huh, what does that mean? That's weird. This is actually one thing where AI is super handy. Where I used to do this manually, now I have an agent that goes out and monitors these things and points me at commits and stuff. So there's some business intelligence, but like operational intelligence here that used to take me like an hour on every Monday, but now I get that hour back, but I get the information as it comes in. But it's all good stuff. There's a lot of happy stuff here. I didn't mean for it to be so dour, but multi-draw indirect and some of these other things in terms of an open standards-based metaverse, whether it runs in the browser or doesn't run in the browser, everything is trending at the standards level and the implementation of those standards level in a good direction for these web technologies and open technologies to be competitive. It's just, which device vendor is going to integrate them all in a way that can be leveraged in a consistently high quality way. That's the big gap for me right now. I'll stop sharing it now if nobody has any other gory details they want to get into. But yeah, the infant reality thing was really a great windfall. We've got to do a bunch of R&D on cutting edge standards that helped them, helped us, helped everybody. The majority of that stuff went back into open source, not just Ethereal Engine, but into React Native Web GPU, into the conformance test suite from the W3C for GPU, getting real detail art about Wiggle shaders, measuring memory bandwidth across multiple devices when using Web GPU, and really getting into the gore, just deep into it. Like there was trying to reason about it. It's so wide and deep of a topic area that we kind of needed to not prototype because Ethereal existed. They had a showcase experience that they were trying to get to run on iOS in an efficient way that didn't require a desktop browser. And the mobile browser memory limit just made it non-viable. It had to be a native app. So I feel very fortunate from that perspective. There's a lot more of this that's illuminated for me where even if my business totally like face plants and because it was a bad idea or not the right time or whatever, I feel like I not only learned a lot, but the royal we, like including everybody here, by kind of trying stuff and getting feedback across all of these avenues to the device vendor, to Kronos, to W3C, to the OMI, to the Metaverse Standards Forum. Some of that stuff is like issues in GitHub. Some of it's like back channel conversations at a conference or whatever. It is making a difference versus 3 years ago. I feel. I don't, and maybe this, maybe so I don't get suicidal. I have to feel this way, but but I think there's it's all trending in a good direction, and the influx of hardware competition, hardware vendor competition, and standard browser stuff is more reasons to be hopeful and excited at the same time, I think. Oh, there's people behind me. Okay. Shut up. I went, everybody, I talked to an empty room for most of the time. But yeah, any if anybody wants to DM anything or whatever, like I'm happy to like elaborate more in private conversations. But the biggest favor you could do to repay me for all of my efforts to try to do stuff in public with open standards for hopefully public good is go install the app, try it out, give me feedback or not. But if you feel like it's useful, or you're like, yeah, I want to see the history of hubs, or I want to see the history of, I don't know, some other of 3JS, whatever it is, or Babylon JS. That's one we look at a lot. It's one of our dependencies. That would be awesome too. Installation is helpful. Using it is helpful. Using it more than once is helpful. All that would be greatly appreciated. And we have seen, since we've shipped and since we resolved some of the store issues on the meta side ourselves by black box reverse engineering what we need to do to get things to work, we have seen installs double month over month over month from August to September and now into October. By October 15th, we saw the installs double. So it's low numbers, but the flywheel is turning. We have no paid promotion. And so anything you do, if you have a friend who are like, oh, this could be interesting for them, please, please, please. Word of mouth is how this gets done. I've spent most of my budget on getting these open technologies into the spot where we can use them sustainably, not on marketing. And so word of mouth marketing would be greatly appreciated. Ooh.
Matt, do you have any videos of in-app stuff with Factotum?
Yes. So the video is. Can I share it here? I probably can, right?
Probably.
Probably. Oh, sure, so. Shit. All right. Yeah. Let me just give that a try. 1 second. To here. I dragged it.
I saw on the Meta site you have like the pictures that what you're showing. The images are from like Gross, GORCE, where you have like GitHub repos and you're visualizing something about the repo inside there.
Yeah,
it looks like, which is interesting.
Gorse is super cool, by the way. Gorse is super cool, but that visualizes the kind of file and directory structure of a repo over time. And we're looking at the interaction activities, people filing issues, people putting emojis on issues, people reviewing PRs, commits, releases, all that stuff. So Gorse is super cool. And
have you seen Sublime? Different. There was also the guys that they did some work earlier. I don't know, and then it looks like the project sort of started for a while and then stalled, and it's called Sublime.
I thought I did, but not. Maybe you can give me a link.
They do. It's again for repos, and they were. I think they had JavaScript was one language they supported at the end of the day, and they said they were gonna. I'll see what I can find. I'll put something in the
Yeah, that'd be
chat.
awesome. I have tried to upload the video a few different ways. I tried dragging and dropping it. I tried using place and doing upload, and it does not appear to be working.
It actually is. If you open your objects menu, you will see that you are currently uploading 3.
Oh shit. Okay. Objects menu.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's no indication on the objects menu that I need to look in there.
Yeah, no.
It's also just black, so
don't
I'm
get
not
any-
sure if it's done uploading yet either.
No,
I
it is.
see.
It is.
Okay.
Because it has no name, it hasn't finished uploading to Reticulum yet. So
I see.
Mm.
And I'm trying to delete the other 2, and I can. And the delete button is disabled.
Here, maybe I can do that. I can't do it?
That's okay.
Huh.
It must just be a missing feature in Hubs, let's say.
Oh.
There we go. All right.
Oh, there it is.
So there we go. It's doing something. Where is it?
There we
Oh,
go.
there it is. Oh, sorry. Let me get out of the way.
There we go.
Pop that in there. Okay, and then there's that second one.
Sorry.
Yeah, I got rid of that one.
There was no visual indicator that anything was working.
Yeah.
I know, yeah. Another hidden feature of Hubs.
Yes. Yeah, and this is a song I worked on with my music production team probably 10 years ago. So
wow.
This is an original song as well. Yeah, and so we don't label things with a specific process like Scaled Agile Framework or Large Scale Scrum. This is very intentionally almost non-verbal, so that whatever process people use or whatever vocabulary they use. Oops, there's the third one. Yeah, it's, you know, when I showed this to Tom Preston Warner, who's or to his team, who's the founder of GitHub, they were like, they're like, you're gonna get 10,000 developers that all download this just to take mushrooms and watch like their favorite open source projects. And I was like, I'll take it. Like, but they had a really interesting perspective where they were like, they saw the casual, quote unquote, casual or semi-professional use case as probably the big first adoption. And I was like, that works for me. And this is one of the reasons why we've, you know, even though we had to do it as free to play on Quest, it was only going to be $15 because we don't have any cloud service to pay for. So it was priced to be accessible. But coding boot camps are very interested because it's like, how do you talk about open source team dynamics? And when you see a giant ring like the one that's in front of you there, where it's like, oh my God, how are they going to deal with that release? It's like, that's the right feeling to have. What was the React team themselves going to do? How are they going to get rid of all those issues? How are they going to work through all those issues when React was very unpopular before it got popular. But when it got popular, you can see it in the visualization. You can see it in the digital twin here in Factotum. And so it's pretty cool where it's like, even though I was an early user of React in 2014, I was CTO of a company and I deployed React at scale. There was stuff looking at this data where I was like, oh yeah, I guess that was in April of 2015 or whatever. We didn't talk about it, but at the beginning of the trailer here, I did do the built with, and I used the WebXR logo and the Babylon logo. I do feel like you'll see it here from left to right. There's the WebXR and the Babylon logo. So I'm trying to do my part to evangelize and stuff, but not have it take away from the business. This is all using Babylon.js. We are on Babylon.js almost latest now, 8.23. We're basically in a phase now where we can upgrade every week, and our automated tests find almost every regression that has ever come up. Yeah, I don't know. There's a. You don't have to keep playing it if you want to. You can.
Yeah, I'll just mute it.
But yeah, that's the trailer, and on the this is another thing on the MetaQuest store. We have the trailers up on Pico. We basically can't enable it on. We can't enable the video on the Horizon store until we recertify the app, which is just silly. Like if similar, if we wanted to change screenshots, the web UI would make us jump through these hoops. So we'll get the video up on the MetaQuest store eventually, but because we're not featured anywhere and there's no visibility, you have to search to find us in the first place. We have a bigger fish to fry at this exact moment instead of putting even more time into the MetaQuest Meta Horizon platform. The thing I point out is that some of the avatars give off smoke, so we can kind of interpolate and figure out what someone's likely contiguous working hours are. And if it exceeds about 45 hours a week for enough weeks in a row, they start to emit smoke, and their little zigzag trail behind them starts to turn red, so you can see burnout. So this is a big thing. The intersection of open source maintainership and mental health is a big topic for me. And not just with React and some of these other repos I'm familiar with, but even going back to, submitting patches to Linus, kernel patches to Linus in 1994 when we were building that internet provider in Illinois. Open source maintainership is very dicey, very precarious in terms of mental health, the highs and the lows of it. And but also when we're talking to customers, because there was a big transition to remote work a few years ago, people don't have a physical separation between their work and their home life. And that actually resulted in a spike in mental health issues and burnout. That is not good for anybody's business. And so talking to some CTOs, COOs type folks, they were like, I don't just want to know, are people working all the time? I need to know when they're overworking. And when we added this visualization in, again, it was like looking at some of these repos from open source that I'm familiar with. I did start to see like, oh, I'm not gonna use a real name, but is Alice burning herself out right now? Like, and as a consumer of that open source project, how can I reach out and try to help in some way? So yeah, I don't know. When I decided to come out of retirement, I was like, what's the most Matt Hargett thing that I can do? And I feel like this fits the bill very nicely. Any questions about what you're seeing? Without the parallax and stereo, things are kind of zigzagging around in a lot of it. But with the parallax and the stereo, it's very legible. It was designed to rely on stereo and parallax to be legible. So, but yeah, any immediate projectile vomit anybody has?
I had one question, which was: is that basically streaming data? Is it live updated through the API that you're dealing with there?
Yeah, so we do provide a small amount of cached data just so people can experience something without having to authenticate. But yeah, for live data, we use the GitHub GraphQL API. And a big key part of our architecture is that we're using Apollo GraphQL to have a multi-tiered caching, both in memory and on disk. So we use the GraphQL API from GitHub. We use the REST API from npm.js. So we actually do sort of analyze the package JSON, the cargo.toml in the case of Rust projects. We map those dependencies. We allow you to kind of, so it is processing live data. And for the cache data, like we only cache like a year, because at 2 days per second, you can see year in 6 minutes. So we felt like 6 minutes is, people are either interested to authenticate or not. We get no data, it doesn't go through a proxy. So we've actually been live in the GitHub marketplace for 18 months or so. What you do is that you sort of install our app into the orgs or repos that you want to. And then that is how the app we then get an authentication token that the web app then uses to fetch data directly from the web app onto the device where it's running. Does that answer your question? Or was there another question underneath that one? You must have gone offline.
Imaginary,
I also point out.
Sorry,
I'm sorry, what?
Imaginary, say something?
Hello? I am here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, your thing lit up
So
green. I wasn't sure if I had lost you for a second.
No worries. Yeah, maybe just Jimmy Six stuff is muted or something.
I think my microphone's having some bugginess. Sorry, guys.
No worries. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, and I was just, because in the back of my head, I'm also thinking you could also use other APIs and sort of rejigger the experience for fill in the blank backend. That's
absolutely
cool. That's what I like.
Yes. Yeah. And so there's a bunch of pieces about this that are informed by my time at large platforms like Roblox and PlayStation, where as a principal engineer, I had visibility into a lot of teams and the data they gathered and the graphs they had. So yeah, definitely, again, that network operations or cloud health operations, cloud service deployments, all that stuff. A lot of this is designed with that in mind. It's really finding the customer to help design the rest of the features with, because I have my own opinions, but when it comes to the cloud deployment side, we can come up with stuff, but I would prefer to drive it with a POC with someone that's got a specific goal, a specific critical pain point, that I think will kind of narrow the solution space for us a little bit. But there's a bunch of aspects of this, like not just releasing a GitHub package, but like deploying it to, data centers. How many data centers is it deployed to? These are all things we sketched out on paper and we used Bezier at first, and then they decided they pivoted AI, and now we're using Spline and Blender. But these are all things we've modeled out to make sure that our design language is relatively adaptable to things like what you're talking about. Another thing I'll point out here is our little.
Look to,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
To trying it. Thanks. I look forward to trying it. So,
awesome.
Thanks for the presentation.
You're welcome. I'll point out one other small, like, cute detail you guys might be amused by. The little avatar heads are from 100 avatars. So we pulled out all of the kind of gender non-specific ones that had unique profiles because they zip by so fast. And we decimated them quite a bit to get the performance up. But I think at this point, on Quest 2 in particular, but I think at this point, we know that we will probably not be targeting Quest 2. So we might de-decimate those avatars heads a little bit or add a few more in. To get certified for the stores, we had to do a bunch of performance optimization across the board. That's a whole different talk that I would be happy to give. Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
I actually did just remember a question I meant to ask earlier. How long was the like submission approval process for Pico?
That was extremely fast. 10 days. I'd have to look at the timestamps in the emails, but maybe less.
Was there like any amount of back and forth, or was it just kind of like
none,
waiting for them to
Zero.
do it? I see.
Yeah, I mean, but part of it also was, we had already had to like do a bunch of stuff to get uploaded on the Meta Horizon first, and that made the Pico thing more of an incremental lift. What we did learn, so Pico is contractually more specific, where you have to hit 72 FPS. You have to hit a few other things. And what that meant was that at this time, we can only ship on Pico 4 Ultra.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember you mentioning that now.
Yeah, and so it does not nearly have the reach that the Pico 4 does. And the Pico 4 and the Pico 4 Enterprise and the 9 million variants that they have. There's just a spread the criticism around. So we did give feedback to the browser team at Pico/ByteDance as well. They did implement some of our requests, which is great. So like WebGPU is there on the Pico 4 Ultra, but they did not synchronize their browsers across the headsets, which is a little bit annoying. So point in Meta's favor there. But also the multi-view extension for WebXR does not work on Pico devices. So it's basically doing 70% more rendering to get the per eye stereo. And that is a bug, a fundamental bug. Not fundamental. It's a bug in how they ported Chromium to their platform. And so the app does work, but to do the same rendering workload on the same Qualcomm chipset, it uses 50% more CPU and GPU, or some like 50% is probably slightly over, but so Pico is easy to submit to, but that might have been because we had the practice beforehand. But even then, we had to get it from 60 to 72 locked for a 10-minute session on Pico 4 Ultra. So we had to optimize a little bit more. But just like when we were optimizing for HoloLens 2 way back when, none of them were truly platform-specific optimizations. We were just had to get even more deeper about making things more compute efficient, specifically in JavaScript, eliminating garbage collection overhead, and thinking more deeply about object lifetimes. That was a big part. There was some draw call stuff that we did to optimize. But in terms of the store, significantly more straightforward. And as I say, we have a partner that's going to help us get us deployed into mainland China and APJC with not just the paperwork stuff, but the localization piece of it also, which is great. And so there are partners that see the good faith effort, and appreciate it with follow through. That helps your business stay alive, which is good. Anything else on that, M-Sub2?
Sorry, I just got back. I had to go answer someone at the door for a minute.
So your voice is very quiet right now.
How's the volume now?
Now I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I had to step away from the computer for a minute to go answer the door.
Oh, sorry. Did you hear my answer? Did you repeat anything?
About the answer about the Pico.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah, that it was like relatively quick, all things considered.
all things considered, their minimum frame rate is not 60, it's 72. And so there were some extra optimizations that we had to do. But I was saying kind of like HoloLens 2, when we optimized to get 60 FPS on that platform 3 years ago, none of the optimizations were platform specific for Pico. They were all generally good optimizations that maintain a solid frame rate or decrease or and increase battery life while running the app. So there's a little more incremental work to do there, but the biggest problem is that Pico doesn't support the multi-view extension.
Yeah.
So the same rendering, on the same exact Qualcomm chipset is just notably more expensive. That's what's holding us back from shipping on Pico 4, which would be really, or even Pico, Pico 3 Neo I or whatever the fuck it's called. We can work on that also, but not until they actually have a working multi-view. It's just not. Let me be clear. If ByteDance paid us $1 million to optimize it so that the app worked without multi-view, sure, I would do that. But what they actually need to do is to fix their browser so multi-view works, like it does on literally every other device, including HoloLens 2, including Oculus Go, right? But I don't currently have faith that anything will happen on the Pico browser side anytime soon. So it's another factor of us going native, where we do want to be everywhere with these and using these open standards. And for some of these platforms, even the Quest 1, there's an enterprise customer in Europe that has a bunch of Quest 1s, like hundreds.
Wow.
And they're like, can you work on the Quest 1? I'm like, we can. It does work in the browser. We do test it there, but for there, we would probably go native just to be able to use all the web GPU goodies and the Vulkan 1.1 stuff that we just wouldn't be able to get through the Quest 1's Sunset browser.
Alrighty, we're just coming over 2 hours now, and I'm actually coming under a gig of space on my hard drive now, so.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
All right.
I mean, it's not like it's like
around so much.
It's ticking down, but yeah, it's probably a good point to cut off.
Right.
I can't find for the life of me the IDE that was 3D VR first that I was thinking of. If I can, I'll pop it in somewhere on the Discord for you.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
definitely.
Thanks.
All right. I will see you guys around.
All right. Bye.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Yeah, nice seeing you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
See ya.